Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. I have not received any regrets for this evening. Can I have a motion on the table to adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Vice Chair Phillips and seconded by. Do I have a seconder? Director Murphy, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Are there any conflicts of interest that directors would like to declare before we start this meeting? Okay, as I see none, we will move onwards to the Laurier Sustainability Office presentation from Eric Mellington. So Eric, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. I think I have the power to do that. Can everybody see that okay? Awesome. Okay, great. Let me go to the slide mode. Oh, wait, it's nicer. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Eric Melton. I'm part of the Sustainability Office. We have our colleague from who's the Outreach and Programs Coordinator, Dan McGregor. He's a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to take on most of the speaking requirements for today, but it was so you have kind of face to name for the both of us. Just a little bit of high level background for those that don't know the Sustainability Office. We have our goals. We're really here to create this culture of sustainability overall, and I'm going to try not to read for the 30 slides that I have. It's not 30 slides full. But it's really just to be able to provide you an outlook of what we do, where we're going, what the next 5 years look like. We're a program that was created by you guys. It was actually 12, 13 years ago now that the program was created to help create this culture, be able to enlist the abilities of the staff, student, and faculty, be able to lead sustainable practices at the institution, and focus on all aspects of sustainability, social, environmental, and economic. What's intriguing over the last 12 years is that things have changed over those years. So we're in the next level of our 5-year action plan, which is the kind of the gist of the presentation today. But it's really to be able to push us forward with what the school wants to do, and in this case, the student union. I've been asking Phil for this window of opportunity to really share where our office is going and to really gain access to what the student union leadership would like us to do. We work for you guys. Our goal is to help lead by example within the Ontario landscape of other institutions, but also maximize the time that you have with us while you're at Laurier to really move forward with what you'd like to do from a sustainability side. So our program is very flexible. Used to be quite rigid. We're kind of moving towards a flexible program. So we're not trying to prescribe what we get to do, but we actually try to understand what people would like to do. So that's kind of the change of where we're going. Overall, our mission and vision, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to make sure that you kind of see that though. We're transform Laurier into an institution that integrates sustainability practices, but also creating that culture of sustainability through engagement and promoting and coordinating sustainability efforts. So that's changed over the years. There's been really good programs that have evolved. We're starting to phase out programs that we've had over the last 12 years, and we're pushing towards operations focused, academic focus, and engagement focus, which we'll see from the 5-year action plan. A little bit of background from our greenhouse gas emissions side. So back in 2009, when the program was created, we did a baseline. We're trying to project a 15% reduction by 2022, a 40% reduction on our emissions operationally by 2030, and achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So this is scope 1, scope 2 only. And in this case, we're actually past our 2022 target. We're at 28%, which is quite good compared to where we want it to be for 2022. But we have well on our way to reaching our 2030 target, being at 8 years away, and we're at 28%. So I think what's interesting about this target is that we really want to address what everybody would like to see happen. But as you know, old buildings, retrofits that need to be done, capital limitations in terms of cost, current situation with the provincial government, there's a whole bunch of challenges in our way. So we're looking to the student leadership for that support and buy-in for not only our carbon reduction roadmap, but the things that we want to do moving forward. So quickly on the pillars of carbon reduction, what we're aiming to do operationally is reduce our energy usage, reduce how much we actually use for utilities, maximize the space that we have. So this is more kind of geared towards faculty and staff. Try to build or retrofit buildings from a zero carbon perspective. We're trying to electrify our fleet, so we're slowly starting on that effort, and then trying to explore opportunities to utilize renewable energy. What's exciting about right now is the reason for this request for this presentation to the student union leadership was that we are about to embark on our consultation period for a 2023-2027 action plan. So you're actually the first group to get presented the actual plan. The draft was completed as of Friday of last week. It was approved by our facilities and asset management group, our leadership from that side. So now we're spending the next 2 to 3 months now in terms of consultation, because most of our funding comes from the student union. We wanted to make sure you get first kind of review of where we want to go. So the highlights of the action plan. Historically, the last 2 iterations have had 17 goals. We've condensed that now down to 11 goals. Most of our goals prior were very nebulous and kind of open-ended. You know, we finished it, or we're halfway through, or we're part way through, or we've started. I was brought in 1.5 years ago to kind of hold us more accountable, make us more time-bound, make us less subjective and more focused on completion of implementation opportunities. So we've created a bunch of SMART opportunities. So it's very HR type of term, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you're going to see a whole bunch of initiatives that you have direct input on, and you can get involved in, that we can connect the dots on our UN SDGs in terms of the goals that we want to complete on behalf of the institution, but also the ones that have been historically being pursued, just not really have kind of a direction on how to do it. So we have quite a bit that we've identified over the last year that is being showcased in this plan. To give you a highlight of what we've done since our team got put together 1.5 years ago, please take a look at the link for our 21-22 annual report. So as part of our action plan each year, we produce an annual report to showcase where the funding has gone and what type of initiatives students, staff, and faculty have access to. I guess historically, we want to create a better rapport with the student union and the Grad Student Association. So we're now meeting monthly rather than, as part of a summary at the end of the year, to really understand where the student leadership would like to go. Our program is yours. So the highlights of the annual report kind of showcase what's been done. And I'm hoping this year's annual report for 22-23 will highlight more initiatives that your fellow students have participated in. For the folks that aren't really aware of our program, I wanted to highlight where we have engagement opportunities. So social media is a big footprint of ours. So we have 3 social media channels, which have grown quite a bit. We brought Twitter back online actually at the start of, I guess, November of last year. So we're a year into using Twitter again. We have a monthly newsletter. So we've done a lot of boothing of late where you could sign up for the newsletter, get a free water bottle, get free swag that we've given away. And this is an opportunity for you to get informed on a regular basis. There'll be a link at the end of the presentation, a QR code where you can sign up for the newsletter. Please feel free to do that. And if you aren't following us on any of these channels, please feel free to do so. We also still promote on our student portal, the Connect page, which is focused on staff, and obviously on the main news page. For events of 2022-2023, we have quite a bit that's already happened in the fall of 2022, but we still have quite a bit that's coming up this coming month in December and in early March and April. So What we wanted to highlight here is that these are initiatives that are always going to be free. Our program is never paid, so students have access to full scale of programming to your disposal. It's always been meant, part of our mandate, to be complementary to student, staff, and faculty. So there's a lot of fun initiatives that you can get involved in. Programming wise, we've consolidated this quite a bit to give you experiential access. So what's happened actually this week as a nice announcement is we've renewed our Sustainable Hawk Fund for 2022, 2023. So we now have a number of projects that students, staff, and faculty can apply for a $30,000 bursary program. There's $5,000 per project potentially available for students to access. So if you have a sustainability idea or initiative or a project or even a venture idea, we encourage the students in the leadership and your fellow peers to apply for the Hawk Fund. Applications started on Monday of this week. They go up to early January. And then the funding will be selected by a governance committee for disbursement. And that disbursement will happen March, April. So the entire 23-24 calendar year or academic calendar year will be focused on your implementation of your project. We're excited because the Hawk Fund this year has really created some fun ideas and cool projects. There's apiaries now in Brantford campus on top of One Market. A student team that won the IKEA challenge is actually implementing their bioswale and permeable pavement parking lot at the Science Building. So that's a nice capital project that they wanted to invest in. A lot of really fun ideas like that. So students are encouraged to apply for this. Any projects that don't get the funding, we have a nice kind of window to customize the funding for the student. So if the governance committee doesn't choose some of these projects, Dan and I have kind of an opportunity to really explore if the students or staff or faculty who applied for some of the opportunities are able to do some unique or customized funding for their projects anyhow. So it's a nice opportunity beyond the 30,000 to look at that. The big thing that we've really pushed since I started a year and a half ago is getting access to sustainability in industry. Obviously, you're at school, you're at Laurier to get a good job after you leave school. So part of my opportunity is to provide you a bridge. If you're looking to gain access to the sustainability industry, we're trying to build up our landscape of community network partners in industry for you to get access for networking, you to get access to experiential opportunities, you to get out there in the industry. So highlights for this from this year, for example, we sent a delegation of 11 students to the Canadian Water Summit in Niagara Falls. They got to stay overnight at Niagara Falls for a 2-day summit, participated in the inaugural downstream event, which was focused on networking in the water industry, if there is ever interest in the water industry. It was open to any student who wanted to participate. We kind of sent it out to the Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Geography to see who wanted to go, and the Faculty of Business as well. And 11 students applied. They got to go. Overnight trip, a nice conference delegation. We've decided to sponsor that next event here at Laurier. So that's actually going to take place in April of 2023. So students will have access to that come the spring. For the action plan itself, as I mentioned, there's 11 goals. There's a lot of writing here, so I'm not going to kind of jump through from slide to slide. All the pictures that are going to be shown on each slide are actually photos from last year's annual report, so kind of highlight things that were done. But as I mentioned, each goal is now going to have a SMART set of opportunities, kind of a breakdown of the years of where we're going to go, and the linkage to the United Nations SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So the big one for us from a climate side is to reach our 40% target by 2030. So the 3 goals are ways to get to there: establishing this mechanism for carbon emission reductions, resetting our baseline. So that baseline was done in 2009. Because that's 13 years ago, we want to make sure we're hitting that target accurately. So we're resetting our baseline in 2023, 2024, and then developing a metering strategy. So right now our utility monitoring isn't as accurate as we'd like it to be. So focusing on data and maximizing the use of data and making it so it's not as archaic. Laurier is still actually getting paper bills and manually inputting those into spreadsheets and having to track that every 2 to 3 months on a time delay based on what the utility bills show. It's 2022, so I'm looking at it as this is something we shouldn't be doing anymore. So these are the types of initiatives that we'd like to highlight. From an energy and water side, we want to improve energy and water conservation across the campus and can contribute to deferred maintenance. So we want to increase our water, I guess our monitoring of our water usage. So we're trying to do some audits for both of our sets of buildings on both campuses. Building out our energy benchmarking. We have KPIs that we want to aim for, which are focused on how we set our temperatures, how we use our utilities, any sensors that we have. We're still trying to improve this. This is something that we have a long-term plan around. And then we're looking at trying to maximize the way we design things. So there's been things bandied around of doing green procurement or green design standards. These are things that have come up quite a bit. We're hoping to establish that with our procurement team and our planning team long-term. And then maximizing the use of BAS or building automation systems. These are the sensors you see when you walk into a room, turn on the lights, turn off the lights. That also relates to how the temperatures are used as well, and temperature settings during the spring, summer, and the fall months. And so you can see that that we're still trying to retrofit some of the older buildings to catch up to what we have. From a transportation side, we have 2 sets of goals here. So increasing the uptake of transportation programs and improving the campus fleet. So there's quite a bit of work that's been done on this, focused on staff, focused on access for students to have access to electric vehicle chargers, having a corporate bus pass for staff and faculty. We're looking at reducing our footprint from travel back and forth to campus. There's been an awareness brought for air travel for professors that are going to places like Northwest Territories, for example. There's a bunch of different things that we can try to tackle. So transportation is a big one for us because it's within our control. We can make choices that are better. So I know that that's something that we wanted to highlight here. From a waste side, I think what's unique about this is something that you can help input and provide support for on a daily basis. So reducing how much waste is produced. So those targets don't seem like they're very big, but our diversion rates aren't that great. And so what we want to try to challenge students, staff, and faculty is just bringing that awareness to the initiatives that are already in place. So there is a lot of commingling of different types of waste streams that are available for different types of sorting. If you go to Fred Nichols, you have all these types of sorting stations. You have a very nice washing station there right at the front. I was impressed by this, being that I was at a different program before, working with a lot of the industry sector. It's nice to see that Laurier has a lot of programs in place. So it's really just an awareness and education piece. We're trying to constantly try to bring that to the forefront for students, staff, and faculty. Food and dining. This one's a fun one for us to help with both food services and our different vendors within the institution. We're really trying to increase how food is a big factor here, increase the awareness of what we can do to reduce the waste footprint of food. Trying to find better ways for students to access more affordable ways of generating food. And then there's a lot of different options that we want to transition to zero waste dining long term. So if you haven't seen it already, our office invested in the friendlier reusable containers. So if you see blue containers from people eating at 4 restaurants on campus, that's actually from our office. It's a 2-year pilot that we're working on with a company based in Waterloo of reusable containers. You sign up for an app, buy your food, eat your food, scan the app, bring it back, and you get a 50-cent deposit. So very similar to the beer store model, where you get money back for bringing the containers back, the same container program here. So we're hoping that has gotten some awareness of zero waste dining and various food options that can reduce that. We're also trying to work with the food distro to see if we can increase how much food is available with corporate donations and trying to offset what we generate from a food services side. So that's an exciting long-term set of initiatives that we want to do. From grounds, we're at goal 7, so I apologize. It's a lot of talking from my part. From grounds, 7 of 11, we're really trying to beautify the campus, in terms of landscaping. We actually have a landscape master plan that was published in 2020, right before the pandemic. So it kind of got pushed aside because of the pandemic. But we're trying to bring back elements of that. So that bioswale rain garden, bioswale permeable pavement installation that I mentioned earlier that the students are leading as part of the Hawk Fund. That's actually part of one of these initiatives, and then replicating our B campus designation at the Brantford campus. That's something that we have at Waterloo as good examples. So there's elements in that landscape master plan that we'd like to maximize. We'd also like to make awareness of Northdale Garden. So that's at 66 Hickory. It's about a kilometer walk away. It's not that close, but there's 44,000 square feet of community garden space. And this coming spring, summer will be the first year we'll offer plots for students and staff and faculty to gain access to planting your own gardens. With the partnership with the Food Justice Garden, we're going to see if we can identify more spots on campus for more garden space like that to be available. So it's an exciting time for students who want to get outside, who live here during the summer, be able to grow their own food, full access to the garden space that they have. Quickly on the coordination and planning side, really this is talking more about contracts and agreements and different training opportunities for staff and faculty, but also to influence behavior change. So the things that we want to identify here is how to really maximize the way buildings are used, the way we buy things as an institution, and what people learn about when they start here, both as a student and as a staff member or a faculty member. So these are the types of things we're trying to influence. The next 3 are probably more important to the student groups, in this case, curriculum. So what we try to provide here is an opportunity to gain knowledge. Whole bunch of different opportunities over the years, a lot of engagement programs and initiatives. We want to continue that. So a lot of the programs earlier in the slides, the list of things that we're doing, we want to gain your input and support and participation for the things that we have on the go. It's only a team of 2, but if thousands of people participate, we get really excited. So a lot of opportunities for you to participate in the coming days. From a research side, we're really trying to improve collaboration between our office and academic programs. We've highlighted, I think there's about 150 different courses that are offered with a sustainability theme involved in it. What we're hoping to do is package that together into a micro-credential. So if you ever thought of going back to school, or if you ever thought of doing something completely different from your degree, we're looking to build an open learning micro-credential with the open learning team. We want to create a living lab capacity. Living lab is kind of buzz term, but really it's just experiences, building an opportunity to build those experiences for you. But we're really intrigued by new ones. If so, students have input on ones that they want to do, we want to hear from you. And then the last set of goals is focused on engagement. So engagement in this case consolidated the goals that we had for EDI, for equity, diversity and inclusion, and for Indigenous studies and indigeneity. We didn't want to amalgamate that too much, but there was a lot of goals that were separated, that there's now an EDI team, there is an Indigenous team, an indigeneity team. So we thought, rather than leading those things, which we really didn't have an ownership on, we really wanted to continue to support this. So that's where the condensing of some of the goals happened in engagement. From engagement, though, this is probably the best access to our program and to the 2 of us in working with the students and your peers, is being able to provide you with as much opportunity as possible. We're really open to working with you on finding that, whether that be student employment, co-op placements, mentorship in industry, these experiential learning opportunities at networking events, going to things that you get to do. That's all within your access point, and not a lot of your student peers know about it. So we're trying to gain access to the leadership group to find better ways to maximize that opportunity. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. I'm very glad to see that we are on track to reach our sustainability targets. It's very good to see that we are also revamping some of our targets to meet modern day goals. And I'm very excited to see all the new improvements that will happen on campus. So let's start with some questions. Vice Chair Phillips, you can start.
Thank you, Eric, for coming to speak to us and for giving this the laydown on what's going on in the sustainability office. I just had a quick question for you. So as directors on the board, a lot of the decisions we make are around how to responsibly spend student dollars, and that can be tricky to balance. Like you mentioned in your presentation, what we're spending student money on and the ultimate sustainability of the school and the students' union buildings. How can we as a board help balance that and make those decisions?
That's a really good question. I think what I find interesting with that is that over the years, the last 7 years, we actually haven't had any increase in the supportive capacity beyond the inflationary side. And so it's interesting that our program has been still very effective in providing that support to the student union and the student opportunities, but buildings is a big limitation. So I think the challenge with our program is that it's based on headcount of students. It's a small contribution. I think it's a little bit more than $5 and per student, and that's still a lot of money to create these initiatives, create these programs. We're really an advisory group in support of our facilities team to help with the bigger picture stuff. So the stuff that you're talking about, Blake, on our side. The capacity that we didn't have before Dan and myself got here in the last year and a half is actually aligning with brokering for government grants, for corporate contributions, for potential endowments. So what I'm excited to share is that I bring that capacity. I spent the last 7 years prior to coming here working for the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, but as their corporate facing sustainability person, so working with the industrial, commercial, institutional sector, and all of those GTA-based national, multinational companies, their biggest needs was corporate contributions, grant funding, brokerage for relationships of maximizing either carbon reduction footprints or capital management. And so I'm providing that now for our facilities folks in addressing some of the capital challenges that we have. There's quite a bit of priorities. Every year, I think we identify $50 to $60 million worth of potential projects that we need to do. But because our capital plans don't really align with how much we can actually spend all the time, the biggest gaps are stuff that I'm now targeting and working on. So your resources now are being really maximized. I'm using it more as leverage to match the capacity that we have. So a good highlight as a good example, to reduce a big reduction in our carbon footprint, we applied for the low carbon emission fund. And we put in a $9.5 million funding grant back in, I guess it would have been July of this year. That'll allow us to put a geothermal plant underneath 5 buildings. U of T is actually University of Toronto is just about to build one of these. And we're excited that we're not trying to copy what U of T is doing, but geothermal here in the region would address our targets right away. We would reach our 2030 goals. We would get really close to what we want to do for 2050, but no one has $20 million sitting around, right? And so this is the thing that I'd like to see us try to aim for. The other thing that I'm pushing for is alumni reach. And so we're trying to create an endowment fund through our sustainability office to use some of the money that you've given us to challenge alumni to give back, not just their time, but their resources if they can financially are capable of doing so. So the younger alumni, this is not realistic for them. The older, more established alumni, this is something that has never been asked of them. And so what's exciting about that is I'm bringing that to the group now because our peers and other institutions have never even thought of this. You know, this would be a game changer to have a sustainability endowment fund for the institution for us to fund initiatives that you're talking about. So I wanted to bring that to the table here because that's actually what we were brought in to do. This is what it is evolving into. A lot of our programming across the province are cookie cutter of each other. We copy and paste, we replicate. We're never going to be as big as Western, York University, or U of T, but I look at it as we can lead by example. We can be the first to try things. We can be the first to implement. And that's from your leadership. That's from something that I'm taking to heart, from students that I've met with in the last year and a half, this is what they want to aspire to do. Maximize your 4 years, be proud of the 4 years or however long you stay, and be able to say, I contributed to that idea. So leadership by example within the institution base.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We will now go on to Director Burchard. You can go ahead.
Hi. I just want to start off by saying this was I really enjoyed listening to you talk on all the different subjects, and I just want to highlight how much I appreciate this sustainability industry, like kind of like an exchange, helping students find jobs in sustainability. That is a fantastic idea. I do have quite a few questions for you today, so I hope if they're too detailed and we could speak on it on a different day, we could do that as well. But I thought some of these questions might be useful for the board. So has the Sustainability Office looked at any potential retrofits for energy efficiency we could implement at FNCC and the Brantford Student Union building?
So Mohammed, that's great. That's a great question for both buildings. From my awareness, there is already identified retrofit potential for both sets. They're in the queue for the next 5 years in terms of budgetary cycle. So if you would like, I can go into it a little bit further from digging up the actual priorities list for our facilities folks to see what is the timeliness for some of these opportunities. There's been a lot of investment, as you would have seen, for One Market. A lot of the money in Brantford is going into there because it's such a big space.
Yes,
it is a potential revenue space as well. But your building out there is definitely in the list of things that are needed to be done, and that would be the same for the FNCC building as well, right? In terms of opportunities there. I think what would be useful for us to share after the presentation as a follow-up, and I'll take this down on my side, but I'll definitely want to hear from you if we don't get back to you right away, is to be able to share what's already been done. I think what's missing in that element is that you see a snapshot of it in your time as a board member, but it might have already been done 6 years ago, and as much as you might see signage that we're trying to update, because I know some of our signage is out of date, we've acknowledged that there isn't really a lot of case studies, there isn't a lot of interactivity for the initiatives that our facilities folks have implemented, and it's behind walls, or it's in data sets that no one sees. And our group might be the only group that gives you access to stuff like that. So we're excited to start to bring in dashboards. We have a pilot that we're going to be developing a dashboard that you can access real-time information, real-time usage. It's going to be probably targeting the 6 largest users of energy in our portfolio at both campuses. That coincides with our metering strategy to really get accurate data, because you can't do a real-time dashboard if you're entering it manually on spreadsheets. So these are things that we're excited to bring, and other institutions have done that. So this is some of the things that we're trying to copy as best practice. But I'm excited that you're excited about the mentorship capacity, the job development side. Our office has historically never done that before. I do mentorship for fun. And so I offer to every student, if you want to learn about this industry sector, if you want to learn about clean tech, the water sector, different type of manufacturing sectors, I, like Phil, the comment earlier, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my early 40s. So I have 20 years to impart. And I'm excited at the fact that a year and a half ago, when I got the opportunity to not work for hundreds of clients anymore, but now to work for one, what's really exciting about the one is I can really focus my time and energy and capacity to bring that to the institution as a Swiss Army knife. And so the opportunity is there for you, Mohammed, and for anybody else on the student union leadership side.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to, if you could forward that to the board at your earliest convenience so we can get some information about that, so that we have a good snapshot on what happened and what will be happening to that physical infrastructure side. The second thing I wanted to ask you is regarding what are some of the social and economic sustainability targets. So what are some of the initiatives that you can actually bring on, like the social sustainability side, but also on the economic sustainability side for the institution, the people working in the institution, and for the students?
Mhm. Okay, writing both of these down. From the social side, I think from my side, Mohammed, it's looking at providing you with as much access and opportunity. Everybody knows sustainability from the environmental side. The social and the economic side kind of gets lost a lot of the time, and we're trying to rebuild that perspective so that students can see that we're trying to do more from the social and economic side. So the focus on this point right now has been food insecurity. We're really trying to look towards that. I know that there are hundreds of students now that are using the food distro that's offered by Martin Luther and Ellisburg, for example. That's happening also at Brantford campus, and that was eye-opening for me. I got to visit the distro, seeing the lineup of students snaking around the building. It made me realize that we're not doing enough. So we're actually working towards expanding the capacity that the distro can receive materials from the different corporations and donor groups locally. They don't have enough storage to take in as much food as possible for their weekly distribution. So we're trying to remedy that. We're buying new refrigerators and freezers with your resources, trying to convert a storage space. I'm actually going to use my network to see if we can get corporate donations from places like Maple Leaf Foods and Weston Foods and Sobeys as examples, to see if we can get bigger shipments of processed goods and fresh goods so that students have more access and we can address the problem for more people. So that's a big social one from our side. What we've tried to do as well, we used to have a mandate to just hire a full-time student during the spring summer semester to help with planning. We now have a full-time student every semester. We've gotten grants, hiring grants for the students. So $10,000 hiring grants, rather than just saying, okay, we got 2 students for free, $10,000 each. We've doubled down on that. So we've used that leverage of resources and hired part-time students to fill in more of our gaps and resources. So we now have, for this semester, as a good example, we have 8 students employed by our office, 1 full-time, 7 part-time, and we're projecting to be about the same in winter semester. So we're very proud of that. That helps with co-op placements, that helps with network development for professionals for these students as they become professionals. And then that gives them access to the industry. We're also trying to make awareness of, from a social side, where career path development happens. So working in partnership with Alumni Relations and the Career Center, we're actually just about to start a Leaders for Sustainability speaker series. It'll start the first week in December. Our first guest is going to be Mike Morris, a member of Parliament.
Yeah.
We want to have students see themselves becoming these folks, over time, become leaders in the community. Doesn't have to be environmentally focused. So we are trying to invite social and economic type of leaders. The highlight for the March speaker series will be Dolph DeYoung, the CEO from the Toronto Zoo. He's a Laurier grad as well. And so we're hoping to see more people come to that to learn about how they can become better citizens as professionals. So those are the types of things from the social side. From an economic side, for us, the biggest thing is utilizing these resources that we have for leverage. So when I got here, I was super impressed by the Sustainable Hawk Fund because it's a bursary program. We're trying to initiate legacy projects for students, staff, and faculty to leave behind during their 2 or 4 year window. As they move on, that project will remain. That could be a social project, that could be an environmental project. And what I was excited about is that we need more money for that. This was the first year that I started in 2021 where we actually gave out the full 30,000. We ended up giving 37,000 away. And all of these projects were very well designed. The students really put their hearts into it. I said, what if we could do 75,000? What if we could do 100,000? You know, starting to challenge that amount to see if there's enough students who want to do things here, build that legacy from an economic side. Could they create businesses out of this? Could they create commerce out of this? Could this turn into revenue for the institution? You know, a whole bunch of different things. Sky's the limit. You know, 30,000 can only go so far, but I'm excited of the energy brought forth by your peers.
Perfect. So I'm just going to wrap this up with one last question. I feel like this is probably the most important one to all of us. Is what are some of the things that the student union, from like an operations perspective, and then what can a student union board of directors do to accelerate your work? Because this is really important to somebody like me.
It's almost like a planted question from my side. This is the question I was
No.
going to ask. So for me, what Dan and I see and our staff see is that there is a tremendous amount of participation from the converted. You know, like there's hundreds of students that participate in different initiatives over the year. We're quite proud of, at the end of a year, 1,000 students participating in our programming. Then I look at the flip side to that. There's 20,000 students at Waterloo campus. There's almost 3,000 at Brantford. So we get 1,000 of the 23,000. And if you really count that, that's probably a smaller number. So the biggest thing we have trouble with is with a team of 2, even with our social media footprint, even with part-time students and staff, part-time students for staff, we can only reach so far. So the biggest thing is collaboration for coordinated messaging, making sure there's awareness at the right places at the right times. I've been trying to build bridges with athletics, for example, trying to build bridges with different academic programs and then different faculty, but the student union has the biggest power, you know? And so for me, it's gaining access to your communication channels, your leadership groups, word of mouth, right? There's only so much you can post and try to get news. The biggest example for us, which was an eye-opening one in a good way, when we announced the return of the free store, when it didn't actually get to open during the pandemic, the first week of school, we did one post on the news page for the main page for the website. We had a lineup of 30 people waiting to go in there, and we average about 1 to 2 people a day now. So that first day, we had a concert line, which felt like a really good accomplishment. It was through awareness of word of mouth. And so I'm a big fan of trying to build that. The only way we can do that is give you the materials and the tools that we have, the content that we have to really promote that to your peer groups. We don't have access to that as staff. We go home at 5 o'clock. You know, a lot of the conversations happen over drinks or over food on the weekends while you're studying. We don't have access to that as staff members. So we need to be able to bridge that communication channel and communications piece. So you asked the question that I'd like to ask.
Right.
How do we do that?
Like, I think it would be a really good idea to have a discussion as a board to see what we can do as a student union to kind of really help build that bridge between us and your office so that we can get this messaging out to the students, because based on my experience, I've seen that we can reach a lot of students when there's a concerted effort. So thank you so much for coming here tonight.
Thanks, Mohammed. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for Eric? Okay. As I see none, I'd like to thank the Sustainability Office for presenting us with their goals and with many of the options that we can do as students to promote a more sustainable campus. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
You too.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda, the monitoring reports. Can I have a motion on the table that the Board of Directors adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Abu Rashid and seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And finally, any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to the comments from the board of the chair and CGO, which is myself. So thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I only have one comment for this evening. I've noticed that there are some directors who are not present this evening without sending some regrets. So please, in the future, if you are not going to attend the meeting, send the regrets within the 48-hour window. This way we can have an idea of who's in the comment if we will be able to meet quorum. Meeting quorum is one of the most important things about being on the board, in addition to providing your views and perspectives on many issues. So that's all I have to say. Move onwards to comments from the president and CEO.
Okay, hey everybody. I'm coming at you with no camera because I'm rocking with one laptop that doesn't connect to the internet and another that won't let my camera turn on. So this is what you get out of me today. So I've got a few updates. This one probably affects you guys the most, and that being the contract teaching faculty collective bargaining update. So just a recap of labor action, contract teaching faculty and part-time professional librarians will be in a legal strike position on November 18th, 2022. So that's 3 days from now. They've indicated that if a new agreement is not reached with Laurier, they will be off the job as of Monday, November 21st. And contract faculty for context are those individuals who provide instruction on a course-by-course basis and are hired on a course-by-course basis. And they have a different collective agreement than the full-time faculty and professional librarians. So according to the university, approximately 500 contracts were issued for teaching course during the fall 2022 term. Negotiations began in May 2022 and continued throughout the summer. However, a period of conciliation failed last month. So negotiations are continuing. In terms of the students' union engagement, we're coordinating with the GSA, the Grad Students Association. So we're executing an intentional communication strategy focused on encouraging negotiations and an agreement as we maintain that idea that students don't need any more barriers to staying outside of the classroom, especially after the last couple of years. So on November 4th, a strike FAQ guide was published to the Students' Union website and amplified through our social media channels to provide information about the potential strike and links to more information to provide from both the faculty association side and the university side. And then on November 14th, a joint statement was issued urging the faculty associations or a faculty association in the university to utilize the scheduled session with the mediator on November 15th, which is today, to come to agreement. If an agreement is not reached by Friday, a further statement is planned with similar but more pointed messaging about the imperative, or I guess just about how important it is to avoid a strike. In the event of a strike commencing on next Monday, a revised FAQ guide will be planned with an expanded scope to include information about navigating strike both academically and while attending campus, as obviously that may affect services. So with that said, students have the ability to contact sufeedback@wlu.ca, which I will copy and paste into the chat for additional information and support. And the Director of Marketing Communications and Director of Policy Research and Advocacy, our wonderful Ian Muller, are monitoring, responding to student inquiries. So that was a big one. And I've just posted that email in the chat. Beyond that, a little bit of a happier note. Health and Wellness Month is still in full swing. World Kindness Day was on Sunday, but for the Students' Union, it was yesterday. So if you've gotten a chance to be on campus over the last couple of days, you may have seen one of the 1,000 sticky notes we've kind of plastered everywhere just to reinforce our positive health and wellness messaging. On top of that, a huge success we've seen is on kind of the idea of us building our brand through Health and Wellness Month with our hoodies. We had about 140 to go on sale. And we've sold over 2/3 of that in just over 24 hours, or as I left the office was just over 24 hours. So that's a pretty huge success and something we're really proud of as of right now. And as Health and Wellness Month chugs on. On top of that, Wilfs has moved from biweekly programming back to regular programming, which is really good as we, again, try to increase student engagement. We finally have the staff to facilitate that. So that's really, really good. And then I guess last, but certainly not least, Kayla has been working hard to develop, Kayla, my VP of Government and Stakeholder Relations, has been working hard to develop what I like to call a campaign regarding Laurier votes this coming January, and creating some strategies for student engagement, both on the candidate and the voter side of things. So she is also here in attendance today to present those ideas as well. And those are my updates.
Okay, thank you very much, Shane. Are there any questions for the president and CEO? Director Burchid, you can go ahead.
2 questions. The first is actually it's a few comments. The first is I've seen your campaign on the strike position, and I'd like to say that like the student union side is doing really well with the messaging, and I'm really happy to see that. The second point is I'd like to also say thank you for all of the great events that you've been running over the past couple weeks. World Kindness Month has been a very good success here on the Brantford campus, and I've received multiple good feedback from a couple of students in regards to the sticky notes. Second nice thing is I'm also really excited and thrilled to see Tinder Tales coming on this Thursday, and I'm super excited to go participate in that event. It's super hilarious. And the last part is like to also just let you know that I'm really happy to see that your VP of GSR was recently, I think, at Queen's Park meeting with different policymakers and trying to advocate for students to the best of their ability. So, all around props. Thank you so much for what you've been doing, and look forward to seeing hopefully a positive resolution to the current strike position.
Awesome. And I will say recently and still is, Kayla will be in Queen's Park till Friday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Burchid. Are there any further questions or comments for the president and CEO? Okay, as I see none, we'll move onwards to comments from the executive director and COO. Phil, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to add too much to what's already been stated and as part of the package, but we've been working pretty diligently, both Shane and I, and I've looped in Ian because over the last handful of days, as you may be able to hear, I have been full of congestion and wonderful goodness, COVID negative, thankfully. So Ian is the one who helps me make sure that my ideas are not phlegm induced. So I appreciate his help. But we've been working pretty diligently with the Department of Student Affairs, trying to work through some of their budgetary stuff as we continue to work on the Student Affairs Advisory Agreement. As such, both myself and Shane and our partners in the Graduate Students Association are participating both actively and passively in the Student Affairs Strategic Plan retreat tomorrow in the Senate and Board chambers. So looking forward to helping them develop what strategic direction that department and the work that we all collaboratively do heads over the next 5 or 6 years. That's the major focus.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for the executive director and COO? Okay.
Mohammed, I'm surprised to see Mohammed has his hand up.
You're doing a fine job. That's like, you're doing great.
Okay, as I see no questions or comments, we will move onwards to the approval of the October 18th, 2022 meeting minutes. So can I have a motion on the table that the Board of Directors approve the October 18th, 2022 meeting minutes? Motioned by Director Abu-Rashid and seconded by Director El Masri. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes. I believe it was 7-0. Next up, we have the election promotion collaboration proposal by Kayla Hahn. So Kayla, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
All right, good evening, directors. Thank you so much for having me here today. I have a pretty short and sweet presentation for you, so I'll just quickly share my screen. I'm just share the regular screen. There we go. Oh, don't read the emails. I don't know why that didn't show up right away. I've only been the campaign, as Phil says. I refuse to call it the campaign, but I rather would call it the student engagement strategy plan. It's a little bit more formal, in my personal opinion. Okay, I'll just start from the slideshow here. Okay, excellent. So just to quickly introduce myself, and once again, thank you for joining me on this. My name is Kayla. I'm the Students Union Vice President of Government and Stakeholder Relations. And yes, I am currently at Queen's Park, and I appreciate those comments a lot, Director Abu-Rashid. So if you want to touch base and we could talk about some of the topics that we talked about with students at Queen's Park today, we're with the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance group that you've met with last month. So I think the advocacy efforts have been pretty meaningful, met with a lot of MPPs, and they're listening to students' voices. So it's a lot of good impact that we'd love to see here. And yeah, I'm happy to share those experiences at another time. But a little bit more related to what I am presenting today, I do have the student engagement strategy plan that I would love to have your support and your input in. I have been a former board director in 2020 and 2021 in my third year, and I just recently graduated as a political science graduate way back in April. So right now I'm doing my term here, and I'm continuing to stay engaged to a certain degree with Laurier Votes. In the past couple of years, I was the Laurier Votes TikToker, and you can probably find me still in the archives of the TikTok accounts somewhere. I recommend not, but it is still existing on the pages. So what I'm here to kind of tell you a little bit more about is our voter engagement. So as you all know from the last election way back in January, we had about 14.2% of the Laurier population vote in January 2022. So that's only 2,715 undergraduate students from both the Waterloo and Brantford campuses that have voted in this election just this past year. So we recognize that this is kind of a trend within a lot of our universities, like McMaster had about 11, we had Queens with about like 16. I might be completely off on that one. I can't remember, they did tell me a little while ago, but we do kind of see that this range still exists between the 10 to 25% mark. And this is not the student engagement that we need, especially with all of these questions that are coming up with referendums, with potential candidates, and we want students to be informed as much as possible before entering the new fiscal school year from 2023 to 2024, or 2022 to 2023. We're still in 2022. So essentially the question is, what can we do to bring students to vote? So we have established a student engagement strategy plan, or the campaign as Phil and Shane like to call it. So in which we want to inspire students to engage in the student leadership role within the Students' Union. So we see all of you bright folks who are all here as directors today, and we want to continue this trend of bringing students into these kind of leadership positions, and also encouraging them for board of directors and Senate and presidential elections as well. We do want to bring awareness to potential candidates of the Students' Union structure, as well as the roles and responsibilities of elected positions. Sometimes we do have candidates entering into the role without many knowledge of how student union structures initially work, but we do want to be able to encourage students prior to them running about how it works for them, what were their expectations in the new year, and how can we better prepare them for that. We also want to bring awareness to the voting process, as well as the referendum questions that inevitably impact students. So we do want students to be aware of how they vote online, as well as just the questions that they might be presented, so that they aren't showing all this information all at once in an overwhelming format, and that they have time to engage and process with the information given to them. We also want to support students with the onset of a campaigning strategy. Campaigning is quite overwhelming, as our president has mentioned. Like it's a lot. You have to put yourself out there in front of a lot of people, and we want to be able to support students on that kind of journey and kind of help them show what does this process look like, how can we better engage with them. Some important dates to keep in mind. I believe that the information sessions are still to be determined. However, the next few deadlines are quite upon us. The nomination packages are due early January, as soon as we essentially get back from our break. The all candidates meeting is on the Sunday at January 8th at 7 p.m. And then the campaign period, January 8th, will continue all the way down until January 24th. So right after, essentially right after the all candidates meeting, half hour after, you can start that campaigning process. And then on January 24th at 7:30 a.m., that's when it's finalized. And then we see the voting process from January 24th at 8 a.m. until January 26th at 8 p.m. We encourage students to really get on their laptops, get their vote out at that time. And then we have our results election night on January 26th at 9 p.m. Usually this is quite a fun celebration. I know that many of you have not had the opportunity to be able to do this in person, but way back when we had this kind of event at Wilfs, we would celebrate all together, and we would kind of see those campaigning parties congratulate each other, and we kind of introduce ourselves as our new roles. This is when Shane and I actually got to get to know each other a lot more, as we were board directors at that time. So it's definitely quite an engaging process, especially when it's in person, and it's great that we have that privilege to do so, but knock on wood, we want to be able to be in person for January. So essentially, we do want to ask the questions, how do we meet the students where they are? The timeline we have presented here is quite a tight timeline, especially with exam season upon us. So with the governance coordinator role continuing to be implemented, our department, the Government and Stakeholder Relations, has a few ideas for the board directors to motion forward on developing a plan to support students with the voting process and engagement. And this is to simply lend a helping hand for the coordinator to be able to engage voters based on capacity. And we would love for you to be a part of that process. We want you to encourage our potential candidates and voters through your leadership and representation as SU leaders. And as mentioned, we are finally back on campus, so we do have a bit of room and flexibility and room for creativity on how we can facilitate this kind of process. And I'm happy to hear some feedback and kind of hear your thoughts on this and what multi-campus models we can also adopt as well. So please feel free to let me know as well. One of our first starts for the student engagement strategy plan is the campaigning process, where we do have some soft promotions. We have some digital signage in the concourse at Brantford and Waterloo and Brantford RCW. So we do want to make sure that students can see the digital signage on the TV screens. We also have these with posters with election dates available and election positions available, along with the nomination pack dates. So students can actually be kind of given to that. You can see it in Starbucks line, or you can see it at Golden Grounds, and you can see that there are these opportunities for you when you're kind of just waiting and studying in the spaces that are there. We also want to start using video promotion. So it's super exciting. We are expanding our marketing team at the Students Union right now. So we want to help kind of facilitate what the digital marketing could look like. So we have this small promotion called #AskShane, where we do essentially like a 75 question from Vogue style as President Shane to describe his campaigning experiences. And as mentioned, President Shane has that experience of what it's like to be upfront and what it's like to be kind of in that intimidating position of what it is like to be in front of the school, talking to people all you don't know and just trying to tell them about who you are and why they should vote for him. So we want to kind of gauge that experience and see what he can say that can help encourage other candidates to come out. We also have a possibility of a presidential elects video to be promoted on the digital promotions for the TVs outside, so students can actually have the opportunity to see the student on these TVs in the same spaces. And this is where I kind of would love your support. We can also do a day in the life of a board member's director's video. So this is kind of where we want to see you engaging with your role and kind of see what do you do as a student union leader. And this could be posted on our Lori Votes TikTok accounts and our social medias. And we just kind of want to blast that too. We want to ensure that you also get that experience out there and what it's like to be in your shoes too. A last one thing that we wanted to talk about was the How to Campaign 101 workshop. So this is where we have a unique opportunity to work with our current faculty presidents and Shane as well as our SU president. So we do have several faculty associations on both campuses with presidences that have also gone through a campaigning process, whether elected in or not. They would also have that kind of knowledge about what that campaigning process could look like. And it would be great to have as many students as possible to talk about the voting engagement in general. So this is where we see a lot of value in that role. So the student engagement strategy plan for voting is a little bit more outreach to the general student body. So this is where we have our campus advocacy committee on both campuses. We have one on Waterloo, on Brantford, to be able to do an interactive referendum question. So this is where we are in our main spaces. So RAC in Brantford and Concourse at Waterloo to have a sticker chart based on each question. We had an advertised giveaway of voting materials and merge. Typically, we do have a budget to be able to have students kind of come out to have a chance to win something really cool. And this is a really good way for students to see what they care about most. What is something that is going to be on the referendum question? What are they going to vote for? What do they need to know what do they need to know prior to the actual voting dates? Can also facilitate some video campaigns with the help of our marketing team and phone mic questions. We got one of those phone mic things that's connected to your phone on TikTok. So if any of you have seen that, we'd love to have some sort of connection like that to be able to engage students on campus and see what they kind of think about the voting election process itself. Typically in the past, we have done Krispy Kreme donuts in the Concords and RCW. So we would have teams or volunteers using student union laptops for students to sign in with their Laurier credentials. And once they vote, students could actually get a free donut. It's quite an easy process. It is a little interrogative. You got to be like, hey, do you want to like vote? And I'll give you a donut. But it does bring up the numbers, but it does kind of like make you feel kind of rushed because you're like, I want a donut, but I don't know any of the candidates. So we don't want to rely on this method entirely, but we do want to use it as a possible technique because hopefully students can easily get that exposure with some of the digital promotions and the way that we're using our committees to be able to engage with people on campus prior to that voting experience. And then we use the donuts. Another thing about voting is a faculty association voting promotion technique. So we work with our vice president of government, vice president of clubs and associations, Haley Running, who is incredibly awesome. And she is able to work with her team to meet with various faculty associations to promote the incoming election season to various clubs. So all clubs should have a training at some point in January in which that she will promote this for her clubs to be able to come out and vote, or encourage them to tell them friends or promotional materials. That would be awesome, as well as she's meeting with them and her team with other faculty associations in between those timelines. So if we have something facilitated for them at that point, they could actually easily disseminate that information out. And we would also use physical cards to do the what are you voting for cards in study spaces. So this could kind of appear like a regular small piece of paper, but it actually list all of the referendum questions and tuition adjustments and dates to vote. So it gives you all of the information ahead of time, but also gives students an idea of what they will be voting for. And this doesn't necessarily include the candidates' names, but this will include the information and how to access that information if needed, if students want to learn more, as well as the dates to learn when to vote, how to vote, and when and how they can actually get their vote out there. So there's a QR code to the Your Students Union where we can have a lot more of that information, but we also recognize that this is an accessibility piece. We want students to be able to access this whenever they want, so they can take these voting cards home or leave it in concourse for other students to see, or leaving it in main study areas that we recognize a lot of students work in. But like I said, this is something we can't really do we can have really done online. So it's something that we wanted to explore as an opportunity with an in-person campaign. This is just a rough estimate of the timeline of what we are expecting within the next few weeks or so. We see that November 24th, the available elective positions will become available and they can be promoted through our soft promotion techniques. December is when it is kind of a busy season, but we do want students to start thinking about what are those possible opportunities that they could have. So we could promote the hashtag Ask Shane, the day in the life of board of directors, as well as the How to Campaign workshop that could be quickly facilitated, usually in between exam seasons. In January, that's when a lot of things start kind of rolling in, especially as soon as we get back from the break. We are starting that campaign facilitation process and getting Laurier votes out there and just making sure that students are aware of campaigning as much as possible. So documentation due, all candidates meeting, all of that fun stuff. But we have in January, the plans for having student union committee supports. Our campus advocacy committees on both campuses are willing to help out with the referendum question ideas and the club engagement from the vice president of clubs and associations. And then on January 26th is voting results, and we'll be wrapped up by then. It'll be a fast term, and Shane and I are on our way out at that point too. So that's a scary thought essentially as well. Overall, like I said, this was a super quick and easy presentation that I wanted to share with you. I'm happy to talk about it with you more. So if you want to take my email here, and if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to give a little bit more explanation. And this is just something that these are just basic broad ideas that I've had since I've been a part of the board of directors campaigning strategy, or as a director myself within the last few years. So it's been a long time coming, but no, none of these are hills to die on. So if any of you have any thoughts at all, I'm happy to kind of share my feedback as well. And I'll stop my share, and I can pass this along to Ian and Phil if anyone wants this presentation as well.
Thank you very much, Kayla. Are there any questions for her? Just for time's sake, I'm going to cap 2 questions per director. Any questions or comments? Director Bruce, go ahead.
One question, I promise. So do we actually do we need to motion that? Well, this is maybe a question to both Kayla, but also Ian and Phil. Do we need to motion on the board to participate in this process, or like the Dane? Yeah, please go ahead.
So the one thing that the board needs to understand is that the governance budget, which is your budget, controls all things elections. So Kayla is basically presenting this. She basically is looking for your permission to start doing some stuff. Since we don't currently have a governance coordinator, which means we don't have a CRO, which means we don't have a DRO, etc. And she is one of the few student executives that seems to have a passion for Laurier votes. And if I may be so bold, I would like to throw battle on that horse and ride it. Like, let's go.
I think then it would be a wise idea to maybe put a motion to the board approving Kayla to spend as she sees fit for this election. Actually, Phil, would you be able to give me, or Kayla, round estimate of how much money you're looking for?
So before Kayla answers, what I might suggest is, if you guys are okay with her idea or want to contribute to the idea to round it out, we can kind of work within the budget that's already been associated with Laurier votes, because there's already something that was approved as part of last year's board's budget approval of the budget for this year. So we can put it together and make sure that it fits inside that framework. And if for whatever reason it doesn't fit within that framework, we can come back in a couple of weeks and go, hey, we would like a budget amendment. What do you think about this?
Okay, perfect. Then I know I did say one question, but I did have another question come. But what else do you think we could do to kind of bring this up? I think, because personally, I think it would be a good idea, especially since I'm very in tune with what's going on in Brantford and the low engagement. It might be worthwhile to do a much more physical presence here, because most students here, they're not here during the weekends, and they're definitely not here Friday nights. So trying to get to them is very, very difficult. So a much more during the week in-person presence might be something worthwhile to look into. And I'd be more than happy to help facilitate that if that's something of interest to you.
Are you planning to rerun? I don't know if you want to divulge that or not, but
I haven't decided just yet.
okay. I'm curious about where a conflict may come into play. So, but that would be awesome.
I'll also keep that in mind too. So I do go down to Brantford weekly, so I am able to be on campus for a lot of it, but I recognize that a lot of the time when this is happening, I'll probably have to go down a little bit more, but we facilitate a lot of rides back and forth, so that's not a concern. And I have an AVP in Brantford too, who's very on top of this too.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions or comments for Kayla? Okay, so I see none. Thank you very much for your presentation, Kayla. Election season is also my favorite time of the year. As you know, I was a previous CRO, so I love this time of year. It's a great time to get students active in the election process. So thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, so moving onwards, we can go to the
Chair.
Yes.
The COO is trying to get your attention.
Oh, sorry, didn't see that.
Oh.
Sorry, Phil.
I clapped by accident. Sorry about that. Do we need to make a motion to approve that or no? Doc, I'm looking at you. Or is what we just did good enough?
I mean, it's ultimately the board's decision whether you want to formalize it in a motion or if you just want to provide the direction that you have to this point. Either works for us, I think.
Okay.
Sarah is muted. Yeah.
What there's a saying in government, but that's between employees, is when in doubt, make it explicit. So I'm gonna try to apply that motto here. I think that it would be a better idea to just formalize it, make a motion, and vote on it.
Okay, so can I have a motion on the table to formally allow Kayla Hahn to spend funds that were appointed into the elections account last fiscal year, to promote election engagement for this current year. Motioned by Vice Chair Phillips and seconded by Director Bottinger. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. So once again, thank you very much, Kayla, for your time, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you, directors. Have a lovely evening as well.
Take care. Okay, onwards to the nomination packages discussion from Ian. You can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So as you saw in the agenda package, I have copies of the board of directors and the president and CEO's nomination packages. You'll notice they look a little bit different. Essentially, we just took a run at updating them and kind of clarifying some of their role expectations, particularly with respect to the board. The idea being to try and make it as clear as possible what these roles are, to eliminate kind of false expectations about what you may be doing. So in particular, in the board nomination package, kind of guiding people away from trying to develop a platform, because as you know, you're not kind of necessarily bringing individual goals to the table. You're kind of coming together as a collective group to make decisions and provide oversight. So that's the general gist of this new orientation. Again, kind of trying to make it crystal clear what the rules are, what to expect, and kind of how to present yourself as a choice to the membership. So just wanted to provide the board with those information, but also happy to provide or to take any feedback or suggestions that you have before we finalize them and release them for interested candidates.
Okay, so I'm assuming we need a motion to approve the nomination packages, correct?
You can if you want. They're not something that's required that in the past, but if you want a motion to approve it, that's great as well. Or if anyone just has any comments or suggestions, we can take those and make edits. But otherwise, if everyone's content, we'll just go ahead and do a final edit and then put them out.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about the nomination packages? Okay, as I see none, I think you have to go ahead to do your final edits and release
Great.
them.
Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. So onwards to the direct inspection committee elections. So for GP number 2, G3, this is just board committee structure, looking at how we structure committees, membership, things like that. So can I have a motion, or not a motion? Do I have any nominations for this committee in particular? Vice Chair.
I would like to nominate myself to this committee.
Okay. And I'm assuming you stand?
I do.
Okay. Any further nominations? I would like to nominate Director Dermott. Director Dermott, do you stand? Okay, I think he's away from his computer at the moment. Vice Chair.
I will nominate Director Bottinger.
Okay, Director Bottinger, do you stand?
I do.
Okay, any further nominations? I would like to nominate Director Goodwin. Director Goodwin, do you stand?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, and I believe that's it. So that's 3 + 1, and that +1 being me. So are there any further nominations for this position? Yes.
It's a question. I was looking at the agenda package. You're looking at one student from each campus. What is the strategy going to be to try to find those said students that are not affiliated with any candidate or party?
Phil or Ian, you want to take this one?
Yeah, usually the CGO in consultation with the CRO will kind of find someone who doesn't have an affiliation, and oftentimes you don't actually need a committee, so that sometimes you just wait in case you need it, or some people will choose people ahead of time. But it's never been a problem in the past to identify someone who can act as an informal participant.
Okay. So does that adequately answer your question, Director? Okay. So onwards to any further nominations? Okay, so I see none. Can I have a motion on the table to acclaim Directors Phillip, Bottinger, and Goodwin to the GP number 2G3 Direct Inspection Committee? Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Baruchid. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? I see none. We'll move into voting. All those in favor? Reminder, if you are appointed to the committee, you must abstain. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes 5-0 to 2. So moving onwards to the BMD number 1 Global Management Delegation Direct Inspection Committee. Can I have any nominations for this committee? Vice Chair Phillips.
I would like to nominate both Directors Abershade and Leclerc.
Director Baruchid, do you stand?
Yes.
Director Leclerc, do you stand?
Yes.
Okay, and one more nomination. Director Bottinger.
I'd like to nominate Director Emma Murphy.
Director Murphy, do you stand?
I do not stand, but I would like to nominate Director Dermott if he is present.
Okay, Director Dermott, do you stand?
Yeah, I stand. Sorry about before, my oven went off, so I just step out for a minute.
No worries. Okay, so can I have a motion on the table or any further nominations? Okay, can I have a motion on the table to acclaim Directors Abershade, Leclerc, and Dermott, and myself to the Direct Inspection Committee BMD 1 Global Management Delegation? Motion by Director Bottinger and seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? Just a reminder, if you are nominated for the committee, please abstain. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes 5-0 to 3. Moving onwards to announcements. Any new business and announcements happening? Nothing exciting? Director Baruchid.
Tinder Tales. I don't know if you could tell by my accent earlier, but I'm really excited for that event. I'm really glad to see it happen back in person.
Absolutely, it should be a very funny, fun time. So are there any further announcements? Okay, as I see none, I would like to make a motion, or can I have a motion on the table to let the board of directors proceed to an in-camera session? Motion by Director Leclerc and seconded by Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Okay, let's see none, we're moving to voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions?